Hello and welcome. My name is Jevgenij Rusakov and you're watching your favorite TVP World program, Interview from Vilnius. Disinformation has long been one of the Kremlin's most powerful tools. Today, it is spread not only through traditional propaganda, but also through social media, AI-generated content, and carefully crafted narratives aimed at undermining trust and deepening divisions within democratic societies. How vulnerable are the Baltic states to these campaigns? And what can be done to strengthen society's resilience? To discuss this, we are joined by Lukas Andriukaitis, board member of the Civic Resilience Initiative. Lukas, glad to see you back in our studio. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
It's wonderful to be back. Thank you.
Lukas, well, first of all, could you please tell us about some of the recent disinformation campaigns promoted by Russian officials and state media? What narratives have they been promoting and who were they intended to influence?
Sure. So a couple from my minds. The first one is about the drone incursion into Lithuania. So there was quite a big campaign trying to portray that the Baltic states are responsible for the drones, that they're allowing Ukraine to fly through their territories to attack Russia, specifically St. Petersburg, which was quite a big one. And the other one, which we observed quite a bit, is the supposed Russian speaker in the Baltic sort of rights...
Mass deportation, let me guess.
Not only mass deportation, but overall rights abuses.
Okay.
I was trying to pick the words carefully because, of course, that is not true. But they're trying to go quite deep into that. So this is less in Lithuania, more in Estonia, especially Latvia, which has been a bit more sort of hard lines on these issues. We do not face these troubles in Lithuania, but also the narratives are not as much here. But there are some. There are some, and overall the abuses, so-called, of the Russian speaker rights in these countries is a big one.
Okay. So have these campaigns become more sophisticated in recent years, particularly with the use of AI-generated content and social media?
To put it short, yes. Whenever we talk about AI, usually the hot topic of deepfakes or AI-generated videos comes to everyone's minds. But to be honest, I haven't observed any of those. What I have observed is quite a lot of AI-written content on social media. So in form of various posts, various articles, and so on. So this is an overall trend that AI is being used to spread it faster, more in depth, and to reach more people on social media, especially on the social media platforms in the West. I'm talking specifically about what is concerning the Baltic states. So X and Facebook has become more lenient towards disinformation on their platforms. So yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of AI content there. Some, like Twitter tries to mark what is AI generated and so on. But overall, it's becoming less and less regulated, which is working in the favor of the disinfo actors.
Okay, so now let's discuss one of those disinformation campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier this month, the Russian Foreign Ministry accused the Baltic states of allegedly preparing for the mass deportation of Russian speakers, which we already discussed a bit, yeah? So what's your take on this in general, and why now, of all times?
So I guess, as in all of their fake stories, there's usually a grain of truth. And I would say that in Latvia there have been some events where Russian speakers who do not fit into the local laws have been, I think in Estonia too, have been politely asked to leave the country, if I can express myself like that. But why this has been picked up right now is because we're seeing heightened information escalation towards the Baltic states. And one of we cannot read the minds of the Kremlin or on what they're doing, on what they're planning. But one of the explanations is that they are trying to reshift focus and to use the method of escalate to de-escalate. So,
okay, why is that? Why? What is Russia trying to achieve with all those activities?
So one again, if we're talking about escalation through de-escalation through escalation, what they might try to achieve is to find someone else to pick a fight on in order to distract the attention on what is happening in Russia itself. So they're getting pummeled quite bad right now by Ukrainian drones, and kudos to Ukraine for being able to do that. But picking or potentially threatening to pick a fight with a NATO member, sort of trying to put pressure on those Western European countries or even US, saying that
distracting attention.
Yeah, saying that guys, if you won't stop supporting Ukraine, we're going to go through the other side. Like we need to stop. We need to sit down at the table and talk. And if you don't want to talk, then we'll mess with the Baltics.
Okay. Let's move on. So when discussing Russian propaganda, we should also acknowledge that inflammatory statements made here in the Baltics can sometimes be exploited by the Kremlin. For example, one recent statement claimed that a good Russian is a dead Russian. So how do you think Russian-speaking citizens in the Baltic states perceive statements like these?
I guess the Russian-speaking population in the Baltics and Lithuania are not united or unified or the same. I guess there's a variety, like in Lithuanian-speaking population.
Sure.
Some people are more pro-Ukraine, some are less pro, and which is all natural. It is hard to, without doing investigation, hard to understand how people react to it. Online, on social media, where I spend most of my research, I see,
different opinions.
Different opinions going in both directions. Some are more pro, some are a little less. Some are thinking that, I would say it's a minority that would say that, it's our Lithuanian population is sort of going against the Russian-speaking minority or something like that. And also it's hard to investigate how many of them are real and how many are not. I think, at least in Lithuania, the population understands what is actually happening and understand that those inflammatory statements are not meant for them.
Okay. So so public officials do not always respond to such statements. But in your view, when rhetoric risks deepening divisions within society, do political leaders have a responsibility to speak out?
I think they do. Again, this is an answer, not a question, not to me, where I'm not sure if I have the right answer.
Would you expect a political an official to speak out
as a
regarding
citizen?
this matter?
Yes, I would like to, especially the ones that are working in the fields, who are responsible for our foreign policies, not necessarily negate or say this is true or not, but sort of draw the line, saying, that has been said, but that's not said about our population, because our population is loyal to our country, and this has nothing to do with what has been said.
Not long ago, prominent members of the Russian community in Lithuania responded to statements made by the Kremlin propaganda, declaring that we don't need to be saved, which is true. So do you think the Kremlin pays attention? Do you think the Kremlin pays any attention to such statements from Russian-speaking citizens living in the Baltic states?
They're paying attention only to where they want to pay attention, and you can find easily individuals who belong to ethnic Russian-speaking or Polish-speaking minority in the country who are very pro-Russia, and they will most likely be much more willing to pay attention to what they have to say and portray them as the voice of the Baltic population. But why those statements that you mentioned, the positive statements, are important is to show to the Lithuanian-speaking population, which not necessarily always live in the same information bubble. Not everyone, speaks the same language and so on. To show that, our citizens who speak a different language, who live in a different community,
they
are loyal, and they are, living under the same flag and support the same country.
Ultimately, how can the Baltic states ensure that Russian-speaking citizens feel fully included in society and are less vulnerable to hostile disinformation campaigns?
Mm. So one thing that has not, we can always do more is to have, media channels and media environments where people could receive news and receive places where they could communicate with each other in their language, their preferred language. So that could be important. The other thing that I mentioned is to draw the lines. There's a lot of heated debates and discussions and views being expressed to Russia and Russians as the people who live in Russian Federation. But again, the politicians and the society itself should be very careful in not including our population into those statements, or not use the word Russian as an umbrella term to everyone who uses the language.
That's probably one of the most important things I'd say.
I would say so as well. How to do that, especially when everyone is heated and everyone is upset about what is happening. There's no easy answer, but since we're all members of the information environment, we should try and be as resilient as possible, and say those statements very, very carefully.
Do you think that, for example, banning some, let's put it that way, banning some characters in social media would be a kind of a way out?
By characters, you mean individuals?
Yeah.
I would say so. But again, those individuals, if they would be banned on, let's say, Facebook, right? They would most likely find their way into another platform or find another way to spread their news. Internet is fluid, so you can always find ways where to express your views and to build your subscribers.
Okay. Is this a problem in your view?
It is. It is not it is a challenge. It is very hard to try and contain something as fluid as internet, and it is easier to do like with media channels, with newspapers, and so on. But we should try and find reasonable laws to do that, right? If we should take the blame from the social media and put it on the individual and to see what he's saying, right? I don't think we have yet answered in our laws what happens to the person who is a propaganda actor.
Okay.
So we should answer that. We should find answers in the law, in the sense of laws, as a country. I'm not sure that EU has, in general, answered that. US is going in a completely different direction. So there are good initiatives. There are discussions about it, and we should think about it too.
Okay. My last question. So if I may finish on a broader note, would you say this is ultimately a battle for trust rather than a simply battle against disinformation when we're talking about Russian-speaking citizens in the Baltic states?
I would say so. It is for the majority of the population to trust the minority. It is also for the minority to trust in the institutions that they will be supported and protected, and to feel that they're home. Because this is their home. So of course it is the trust which is trying to be undermined, but it's also a way to sort of negate the incoming information and the incoming information bubbles from the other side, which has the advantage of the same language, which we don't as the Lithuania, who has only one state language, right?
Lukas, thank you so much for joining us today, and I really hope to see you once again in our studio.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was Lukas Andriukaitis, the board member of the Civic Resilience Initiative. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.